Some of the biggest fortunes on earth were not built from complicated ideas. They came from one simple insight that scaled brutally well. Most people think Google is a search engine. That is only the front door. The mistake is thinking the product is the search box. The business is the auction happening behind it. Every search creates intent. Advertisers pay to stand closest to that intent at the exact second it appears. The search bar looks free, but it routes billions of decisions through one marketplace. The early insight was simple. Pages linked by more pages were probably more useful. Simple, but explosive. Better results brought more users. More users brought more advertisers. More advertisers brought more money. Google did not just organize information. It organized attention, then sold access to it. And that same pattern appears again. A familiar product on the surface. A different machine underneath. Amazon looked like an online bookstore. But books were the test product, not the destination. Books were cheap, searchable, easy to ship, and almost infinite in variety. Perfect for teaching people to buy online. A physical store has shelves. The internet had no shelf limit, and that changed the entire retail equation. For years, the business looked almost irrational. The money kept going back into warehouses, software, and speed. Books became electronics. Electronics became groceries. Groceries became subscriptions. The cart expanded into a habit. Then the strangest part happened. Under the shopping platform, Amazon built computing infrastructure other companies needed. The world focused on packages, while the company quietly rented out the digital backbone. That is why the bookstore story is incomplete. The store was the front end. The infrastructure became the moat. One idea about selling books online became one of the most powerful operating systems for modern commerce. The next empire came from a deal so small, it almost looks impossible in hindsight. Microsoft did not win by building every computer. It won by sitting inside them. When personal computers were taking shape, hardware companies needed an operating system fast. The key move was not owning the computer. It was controlling the software layer that every computer depended on. Machines could be copied. Components could be replaced. But the operating system became the standard. Each new computer made the software layer more valuable. More users meant more developers. More developers meant more lock-in. The box on the desk was not the empire. The invisible layer running inside it was. That is how a software standard became a business gravity well for decades. Then came a company that did not sell software, products, or hardware. It sold human attention at scale. Google owned intent. Amazon owned commerce. Microsoft owned the operating layer. The next empire owned the social graph. Facebook began as a directory. But a directory becomes more powerful when everyone inside it keeps coming back. Profiles created identity. Friends created connection. Notifications created return visits. The news feed changed everything. It turned a static directory into an endless stream of social signals. Likes, comments, tags, and messages became tiny rewards. The product started training behavior. Once attention gathered in one place, advertisers followed the same way they followed search. Pages, groups, messages, photos, events, apps, and ads all stacked on top of the same social graph. The genius was not a website. It was turning relationships into a system advertisers could navigate. The next empire did not start with software. It started with speed, taste, and a supply chain that listened. The pattern shifts from digital attention to physical reaction time. Notice what people want, then move faster than everyone else. Zara did not become powerful by predicting fashion perfectly. It became powerful by reacting fast. Stores became sensors. What customers touched, tried, ignored, and bought fed the next production decision. Design, manufacturing, delivery, and display were pulled closer together so trends could move quickly. Limited runs made shoppers act faster. If a piece disappeared, that was part of the system. It was not classic luxury, and it was not cheap basics. It was speed wrapped in style. Once the loop worked, it could be repeated across cities, malls, and countries around the world. The simple idea was this: fashion did not have to guess months ahead. It could listen, respond, and restock the desire while it was still hot. Then comes a company built on a promise that sounded impossible at the time: move something overnight, reliably, again and again. FedEx took a boring frustration and turned it into a system. Packages should move fast and predictably. The insight was routing. send packages through central hubs, sort them fast, and push them back out. The company was not only selling delivery. It was selling certainty in a world where uncertainty was expensive. Boxes, planes, scanners, sorting floors, trucks, routes, and deadlines all had to move like one machine. A promise this strict can collapse if one part fails. That pressure is exactly what made the system valuable. The empire was built from a simple promise. If it absolutely has to arrive, build the network that makes people believe you. The next empire did not just sell coffee. It sold a daily ritual in a place that felt familiar anywhere. This is why boring infrastructure can become enormous. When a system removes uncertainty, businesses build their own promises on top of it. Starbucks did not scale because coffee was rare. It scaled because the ritual was repeatable. The store became a space between home and work. Not just caffeine, but atmosphere. Same cup, same smell, same menu logic, same little reward before the day begins. The genius was making a small daily purchase feel personal, premium, and almost automatic. If it were only coffee, cheaper competitors would have erased the advantage. The product became a familiar pause that could be dropped into cities all over the world. One store experience became a global habit loop. Familiar place, familiar cup, familiar reward. The next empire sold shoes, but the real idea was much bigger. Attach a product to human ambition. Nike is not powerful because it makes shoes. Lots of companies make shoes. The product is performance. The brand is the feeling that you could become more than you are. Nike attached itself to winning, struggle, pressure, comeback, and identity. Shoes, ads, athletes, slogans, stores, and culture all pointed at the same emotional target. A shoe became proof of taste, effort, tribe, and aspiration. That is much harder to copy than rubber. The simple idea was to sell the person people wanted to become, then put that idea on their feet. The final empire in this build is almost the opposite. Tiny interface, enormous network. Nike shows the full pattern again. The visible product is simple. The hidden engine is identity, repetition, and cultural proof. WhatsApp looked like a simple messaging app. The real idea was trust through simplicity. No complicated feed. No heavy profile. Just phone contacts, messages, groups, and speed. Every friend who joined made the app more useful. Every group made leaving harder. In many places, WhatsApp became less like an app and more like basic communication infrastructure. No flashy interface. No complicated trick. Just the one thing people needed every day. That is the paradox. Sometimes the biggest network is built by removing everything that slows people down. Search became an ad auction. Books became infrastructure. Software became gravity. Social became a graph. Fashion became speed. Delivery became trust. Coffee became ritual. Shoes became identity. Messaging became rails. The formula is almost always the same. Take a simple behavior, remove friction, make it repeat, then scale the system around it. People see the product, search bar, cart, software, feed, shirt, package, cup, shoe, chat bubble. But what scales is the machine underneath. Attention, logistics, standards, habit, status, speed, trust, and network effects. That is why the best business stories often start with something almost boring. Once you learn to look underneath the product, every empire starts to reveal the idea that actually built it. The product gets famous. The system gets rich. And the simple idea hiding underneath becomes the empire.